It's going viral on social media. It's on the front page of some of the papers, including the Daily Telegraph. And this is honestly astounding. We're going to play the clip now of a police officer talking to someone from the Campaign Against Antisemitism. This is Gideon Falter. We'll be talking to the campaign tomorrow, on the programme tomorrow, but actually this is an issue that affects everybody in this country. It's not just about Jewish people, it's about everybody in this country, because this man was told, you are openly Jewish, your mere existence is provocative, and therefore you should go away from this protest. We've been told time and time and time again that Jewish people and everybody is safe in the streets of London and other parts. We heard with someone in touch a minute ago about a march in Bradford as well. Oh, everybody's safe, it's all fine, no problem whatsoever. Well, let's see what happened in this clip. Let's play this.
If I could ask you to stay there, please. Thank you very much. I know I have heard you.
I don't want to stay here. I want to leave.
Well, in that case, sir,
I'm going that way.
when the crowd is gone, I will helpfully escort you out.
I'm going to walk. I don't think that
No, sir. I don't want anybody antagonising anything. Yeah, and at the moment, sir, you are quite openly Jewish. This is a pro-Palestinian march. Right. I'm not accusing you of anything, but I'm worried about the reaction to your presence.
Well, this, of course, the police officer saying, you're openly Jewish, I'm worried about the reaction to your presence. I just want to read out the statement that Matt Twist, he's the Assistant Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police. I have this in front of me. Just want to read out this full thing. We're into the realms of the deeply, deeply disturbing here. This is from Assistant Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, Matt Twist. The video posted by the Campaign Against Antisemitism will further dent the confidence of many Jewish Londoners, which is the opposite of what any of us want. They were showing what happened. The use of the term openly Jewish by one of our officers is hugely regrettable. It's absolutely not the basis on which we make decisions. It was a poor choice of words, and while not intended, we know it will have caused offence to many. We apologise. Good. The issues at the heart of these protests are complex, contentious and polarising. When the challenges of public order policing are layered on top of it, it becomes a very difficult environment for frontline officers to work in. In recent weeks, we've seen a new trend emerge, with those opposed to the main protests appearing along the route to express their views. The fact that those who do this often film themselves while doing so suggests they must know that their presence is provocative, that they're inviting a response, and that they're increasing the likelihood of an altercation. They're also making it much more likely officers will intervene. They don't do so to stifle free speech or to limit the right to protest, but to keep opposing groups apart, to prevent disorder and keep the public, including all those taking part or opposing the protest, safe. That is, after all, our primary role. It is up to us to review these interventions and to determine whether we are getting the balance right, adopting our approach as we do so, and making sure officers are supported to make the right decisions using all the powers available to them. We will continue to do so following the most recent protests ahead of future events. So it's okay to hold up a swastika. It's okay to say that you are for Hamas, and we know that there are a lot of arrests that should have happened for pro-Palestinian protesters, not all of them who are pro-Hamas, of course, but actually we're being told that a Jewish person, or anybody else actually, not just Jewish people, who film themselves suggest they must know their presence is provocative. So they can't film themselves protesting the protest. Words fail me. We're talking tomorrow, I should say, to Stephen Silverman, who's the Director of Investigations and Enforcement for the Campaign Against Antisemitism, because it's such a big issue, we're going to talk about it over 2 days. But actually today I want to talk about how this is not just about Jewish people, it's about all of us, actually. And Ike EJ, who has contributed to this programme before, has actually put on Twitter a great tweet, "You're quite openly black. This is a BNP march. I'm not accusing you of anything, but I'm worried about the reaction to your presence. I can't see it either. In effectively criminalising Jewishness," says Ike, "the Met risked raising the long arm of the law in a Nazi salute. Rowley, the Commissioner, must go." Lauren, what do you make of this?
Look, I don't believe that the policeman who was talking to Mr. Falter is an anti-Semite. I don't. I think that the police...
It was foolishness.
Yeah, I think the police are bad at understanding the language that they are supposed to use in these circumstances. I think that they don't know how to police these protests anymore. I think that there has been so much contribution from the government, from opposition members. I think this is a highly contentious set of issues in every single one of these protests. at the heart of which the police are trying to keep everybody safe, while trying, frankly, to keep themselves from being in the front line and being the story. And instead what they've done is, whether through an abundance of caution or, a lack of sensitivity or awareness, they've managed to create the worst situation they can possibly imagine. The chap is tweeted, you're quite openly black. I think that is a good way of looking at what's been said here, because there is I've always had a question about this every time one of these stories comes up, every time one of these phrases gets used. It's like, why is it that you feel that it's okay for you to say this to a Jewish person?
Yeah.
What is it about the last several years, several decades, several centuries that says, okay, well, I can say this to a Jewish person, but obviously I wouldn't say it to a black person standing in front of me.
Yeah.
And that is something where the Met needs to do some real work to understand why it is that this officer felt that it was acceptable to say this. Very clearly, from the clip, this man isn't someone who has spent 4 hours preparing what he might say were he to encounter someone Jewish on the sidelines of a pro-Palestinian protest.
But should he have? I mean, this wasn't outside the realms of possibility. This is clearly an officer of the Metropolitan Police.
But he's also
he's
got thousands of people marching behind him. The last time I spoke to a policeman outside one of these protests, I live near the American Embassy in Vauxhall, and occasionally these protests end up there. And I spoke to a police officer several weeks ago about one of these protests, saying, look, when are these roads being cut off, because I need to be able to walk into the road behind to get to my house, and how many people are? It's like 60,000 people are expected for this. This copper has 60,000 people marching behind him. He's got one person in front of him who could very seriously be in danger from the people behind him, because frankly a lot of the activity that has been displayed on these marches has been completely unacceptable. And he's stuffed up. Meanwhile, the Met then stuffed up further by their first statement and had to issue a secondary statement. The secondary statement should have been all that needed to be issued. This was not acceptable language and we apologise. And so what they did instead was they said, well, this man should have known he might be a provocation, or he's people filming themselves might have known they might be a provocative presence, or words to that effect. And I think that if you are a Jewish person, and Mr. Falter says he was walking away from a synagogue that he'd been at, and therefore he was not actually a counter-protest of any kind. These people were marching across his chosen thoroughfare, basically. I think that if you are in a group of people who feel like you will not be adequately represented, who feel like the institution of the state that you might have to encounter may not adequately protect you, I'd film it too.
Okay, Matthew, what's your view on this?
Well, I mean, I basically agree with Lauren. I mean, in my view, actually, the dreadfully worded apology, for me, is almost worse than the original incident.
Because that's the institutional element.
This is an assistant commissioner with a huge press office, lots of highly paid professionals who are supposedly getting the message right. And to me, I mean, we have someone who's messaged me here, Adam, who says, my jaw was on the floor after you read that. Who read that statement. And it is astonishing, isn't it?
It is absolutely astonishing. And as you say, there'll be lots of professionals that they pay very well to do the comms for the police. And they palpably failed. I mean, going back to the original incident, I agree. I think the police have an exceptionally tough job to do.
But nonetheless, I get that. I totally get that the police have a tough job. This is very difficult. We're going to talk about this with Peter Blexley actually a little bit later on in the programme. But at the same time, I mean, why is the Met deploying officers who don't have skills or language to use at these protests? The officer here, he's not a young rookie. He's older. He's presumably very experienced. This is the default language at his time in his career. That's actually very worrying.
I think it's very concerning, and I've been thinking. So I'm a gay man, right? I'm part of the LGBT plus community. I hope that a police officer wouldn't say to me or whoever,
you're openly gay, you're openly Christian.
Gay,
that's provocative.
What are you doing here? This is a protest with people who don't like you. Therefore, you're being provocative by your very appearance here, even if you're just going from one place to another.
And that's the point, Matthew, isn't it? That is the point. It's not just about Jewish people, it's about everybody. It's about anybody. You could say you're openly a woman.
Well, they do say
indeed.
it. They say, well, you were wearing a short skirt.
Yeah.
How is that not in the similar vein of policing language, to be honest? You were wearing a short skirt. That's why it happened.
For me, I don't know if you agree, Lauren, but it just seems to me that the Met, I want to believe in the police, but it just seems that the Met repeatedly put their foot in it.
I think
And
it
why
seems.
is that?
I think it seems like the first statement was, okay, we have to protect the institution,
Right.
Yes.
and the second statement was, okay, we're actually here to protect the people of London,
I want to read out.
and that's a real problem, I think.
I want to read out a few messages here. Mitch is in North London and says, Peter, in fairness to the police, they were going to arrest that Jewish man for a public order offence for his own safety, take him somewhere away from the area of potential confrontation, and then de-arrest him. It's what they would do if you tried to hang around outside the Millwall football ground where a home game wearing a West Ham or Leeds football shirt. Whilst your safety shouldn't be at risk at any time on the streets of our capital, sometimes circumstances are such that no police force could guarantee it. If I do have one criticism of the police in this instance, it's why they didn't arrest the tall black man at the end of the video, who's clearly heard threatening to follow the Jewish man around. That's harassment. I didn't see that particular bit, I must say. Sue in Chelmsford says, so it's okay now to be openly Muslim, but not openly Jewish. Amanda says, how much longer are our civil liberties going to be denied on Saturdays during the pro-Palestinian marches? It's an utter disgrace how long it has been allowed to go on. Enough is enough, says Amanda. Declan says the outcry at a police officer using language such as openly Jewish needs to be at a similar level to the consequences if the officer had misgendered a protester or arrested somebody at a BLM protest. Well, Declan, I think your tongue is perhaps in your cheek, but actually that is a quite serious point. Caroline from Waterlooville, final one on this, and then we'll talk about another topic. Well, actually, no, we have one more text. Caroline Waterlooville says, sadly, I'm not surprised at the scene of the Met Police stopping that Jewish man from walking freely and saying you're openly Jewish. What next? Compulsory wearing of yellow stars for Jewish people? I don't think we're quite at that level, Caroline, but thankfully. There is no way the police should say you're openly Muslim, you're openly black to anyone, but it's somehow acceptable to speak to Jewish people like this. Shame on our country, says Caroline. Well, that's exactly the point that Lauren was making a little bit earlier on. And Mary in County Down has been in touch and says the Met needs to urgently review what it is saying and the language it is using and how they're operating on the streets.
I think they urgently need to review their training too.
Yes.
How is it that Jewishness and the Jewish community within London appears to have just been absent from whatever diversity training has been going on within the police? Because that would seem to be the end result. The end result here
it does seem. I mean, I don't think any of the three of us is Jewish, but actually, it does seem to be the thing that some people think it's okay. As you correctly said earlier on, it's all right. In some people's minds to criticise people for being Jewish, but obviously there are people who would never dream of criticising someone for being gay or Christian
It is
or a woman.
completely unacceptable, and it has to form apparently a much bigger part of diversity training in the Met than they've ever had previously, because that's clearly one of the elements that's going wrong here.
Yeah.
Mick in Wallington's been in touch. He says, Peter, police officers are no longer robust enough to make a stand during a rowdy demo. Officers are too fragile. Mark Rowley knows this, and he is afraid.